I mentioned doing something responsibly and also delaying gratification. I think responsibility and delaying gratification is the key to doing it the right way. I know everybody has different goals, and that's something to be said too. People have different goals, but I mean, I've countless times have pretty much suggested people wait before purchasing a home. Why? Well, because they don't have any money going into the transaction. I understand there's down payment assistance out there. I get that. But if you're going into the transaction and you're draining every cent that you have to your name in the purchase of this home, might I recommend that you give it a minute?
All right, well, it's another episode of Terrence Thoughts. I'm back after my little summer sabbatical, although I don't need a sabbatical because I should start it back. But very, very excited about today's topic. I'm wanting to discuss, uh, continue the series on the Black Dollar. Um, and today I just have a lot of questions. I'm not coming at this with a particular agenda. I do have an opinion, but I should see a trend in the Black community over the years, including myself, of certain pursuits that we want to endeavor on and to increase wealth. And the biggest one is real estate, right? And so I have someone who's very familiar to my podcast, but it's my brother, but he's also an expert in this field. I got my homeboy Kevin, K Dub.
Yo,
What's up,
yo,
man?
yo. I can't call it, brother. I appreciate you having me back on Terrence Thoughts, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I don't know how much you want to share. Like I said, maybe 100 people that'll see this initially. But I don't know how much you want to share. If you want to promote your business, I'm cool with all that. I leave that up to you to decide. But I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge in this particular area. Um, so I just want to kick it off, man. Like um, the Black community, obviously there's a history when it comes to home ownership of us not being able to obtain that. You have redlining, you have Jim Crow laws and all those things, right? And so the American dream is the American dream for all. It's not just for Black people or white people. Anybody in America wants to home with the white picket fence, and the kids get off the school bus, and then we live in a home 15 years, pay it off, sell at home, and get a mansion. You know what I mean? That's like the goal, right? Um, but obviously, everyone knows the time that we're in right now with the market and interest rates and all of that. And we'll get to all of those nuances. But I guess, what is your perspective on the desire, particularly in the Black community? Like I said, it's nationwide, but particularly in the Black community, um, what is your version of the desire to want to own a home when it comes to us?
um, yeah, pretty much like you mentioned. Um, and this is a good segue from, or at least just kind of piggybacking on what we talked about last time, where our money goes, speaking from the Black community. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head on some of the motivation and some of the reasons why I can get behind, wholeheartedly get behind ownership. Of course, I got some other opinions too,
Right.
but the restrictive covenants that people made with different private home owners associations back in the day, and just the struggle of, being able to call something our own, right? It, some people, I've got friends that they grew up and they never lived in a home that their parents owned. You know, I was fortunate enough to where I actually experienced that, but I'd be lying to myself if I said that, I thought that was the typical scenario. Um, I had a pretty different perspective because the area that I lived in, it was a lot of pride of home ownership, was middle class area. It was a mix, black and white. But blacks took a lot of pride in what they did, you know. And so I got a chance to see that. And from my perspective, home ownership was never something aloof. It was never something that was like you can't you can't obtain that, right? Just from what I experienced. But I know that's not the norm. So I'll speak from the perspective, if I can, from the for the black community, that it's been hard, man. It's been really rough. A lot of people haven't had the opportunity. It's been outliers that have had the opportunity to purchase homes or a home. And I think that in and of itself is still a very noble dream in the black community. I'll say that. I think I can get behind people wanting to kind of plant a flag, right? It's pretty much that sensation of like, hey, this is mine. You can't, and we'll get into this. I'm sure you'll have some questions,
Yeah,
but generally speaking, no one can make me leave. This is mine. I can paint the walls what I want. I can put whatever I want in the front yard, in the backyard. This is ours. We don't have to move around anymore. We get some stability, a sense of community. And to me, I think it's a noble call or desire. I think it's noble. Um, it's been a challenge, but I do think it's a noble desire. I want to say that first because I am going to share some things and I don't want people to think that like I'm against people trying to like buy homes, right?
right.
Um, very much for it. Very, very much for it. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, that's good. A little bit about me. Single parent household growing up, so that bouncing around that you mentioned, I do understand. Like I never had that, so I had the opposite of your experience. I had the apartment life, very small quarters, um, and it's just moving around. Rent get too high, we bounce to another complex. Rent get too high, in the hood, and so never had the backyard. Well, so my grandmother got 10 acres, so I would go there a lot growing up. So I did have that over my peers. Like, so I would be at my grandma's house like every weekend during the summer. So she got 10 acres. So I did experience like having the freedom of running around and stuff like that. So I guess for me, the uniqueness is I never desired or never like felt I was lacking because I had that on my grandmother's side, but I never had it as my own. But I grew up in my own room. I had my own bed. I had a bedroom set. I had the PS2. um, the Sega. I skipped the PS1, but I had to. So I had a pretty within the house. And I always talk about how my mom never bought off-brand food. It was Oreos. She ain't buying the cream and cookies. Like it's Oreos. You know what I'm saying? It's Ritz.
No
Like
RC, she getting the
right,
Coca-Cola or the Pepsi.
right. Now the
Sorry
only
for the
thing we
black
got was the
community.
Chet. The Chet drinks from Wendy's in Louisiana. If you know about Chet, and Chet drinks they have that strawberry. Ooh. And I'm cold, put it in the freezer. You know what I mean? But so yeah, so I was privileged in a sense in my particular community, but I definitely understand the mindset. And so, really, in this moment, I realized that may probably impact how I view home ownership now, because I did have that experience, I guess, of the yard and all that, and I understand the maintenance that's required. So I'm like, I ain't really trying to, we'll get into some of the reasons I'm for and against it. I don't think it's either way, but but yeah. So similar to how you said, like the black community that is mine. I like you said, I could paint the walls. I could customize it. You know what I mean? It's mine. But let's talk about that because that is mine. So I've been in insurance for 10 plus years, and so I've dealt with in the auto and homeowners, but in the auto mainly, I dealt with I deal with the um, car being damaged, right, in an accident or whatever the case may be, file a claim. We have to handle that, and you know, so I see the loans. I see, you know, the insurance will pay 15,000, but you owe 25,000, right? So I see that dynamic a lot, and when I on social media and stuff like that, when I see people purchasing a home, they're literally taking a picture with the lender with the key, like, I got it. I'm a homeowner.
Mhm.
And I'm very like literal with words. And I'm like, are you though? So one of the questions I have for you is, and again, I don't know if you want to share what you do, but one of
You
the
good, bro?
questions I have for you is, he's in the industry, but real estate industry, but are you truly a homeowner when you get a mortgage?
So I think I know where you're coming from with this. So I would say, let me just start by saying, yeah, you own it from the standpoint of the distinction between being a renter and an owner. Um, as a renter, you literally only own the contents in the home,
Hmm.
not the home itself, right?
Yeah.
Um, you purchase that home, even if you have a mortgage to do it, it's yours, right? Or you're working towards it being yours, right? So I think that's kind of what you're getting at is you you have the home provided you could pay back this loan that was given to you to get this collateral. So um, lenders look at the home as collateral. We're going to give you the money. Here's the collateral. If you don't pay us, we're taking this bad boy back, right?
Okay.
So yes, you own it from the standpoint of what you possess. You possess more than just the contents inside the home, but you have everything else, right? You got the title is in your name, right? That's a state recorded thing. You can look that up and see, pull up an address and see the name of the entity or the individual that owns that home, right?
Hmm.
So from that standpoint, yeah, you're not a renter anymore. And your mortgage payments are going to pay off this lender so that you can eventually have no lien or loan against the property and you own it outright. So yes, but I see where you're coming from. I guess in your mind, to satisfy your brain, right? They should say, I am a
Home
homeowning.
purchaser.
I'm
I'm a home
homeowning.
purchaser.
I'm a home
But
purchaser, right?
yeah,
So
and the reason I say that
I
is
see where you're coming
because
from.
when you purchase, because everybody can relate to a home mortgage loan, but they can relate to a car. When you purchase a car and you get a loan on that, you're not the owner. Honest, I mean, yes, but
I
until
see where
you
you're
put that
coming
mug
from.
off, it's the bank.
Hmm.
And if you file a, I know insurance very well. On an insurance claim, if it's over a certain amount, we have to put their name on it.
Yeah.
If it's over $5,000, some it's even lower. You have to put their name on it, or we have to pay the shop directly where you're getting the repair because you're not the owner. You have another vested interest. And so, in the same way, I get it. As you make payments, you're building equity at some point. I don't know when that is. You know more about that than I do, but at some point, you're building equity. And if you come into hard times with that equity you built is yours, and that could be applied to the balance if you need it to sell or whatever the case may be. So I get that, but yeah, I struggle with that picture, and I think about the scripture. Um, the lender is a slave to the borrower. I mean, the borrower is a slave to the lender, and then we talk about the foreclosure rates. Like I just saw something today that 1 in 4 Dallas residents are behind their water bill. Um, like to the point where they're about to, start shutting off water in September. and the average bill is $127. Um, and so stuff like that, and we know we could go over the statistics of all Americans, not just the Black community. It's probably worse for the Black community as far as the average American can afford a $400 emergency. The average American don't carry an emergency fund. Um, and so we see this dream, and it's like it's preached to us, kind of like a degree. And some people are getting away from that mindset. I mean, we do understand the benefit of a degree, but it's like it's really a skill set and some other intangibles if you want to make wealth. A degree doesn't equal wealth. And so you graduate with debt, but we celebrate the graduation. But a lot of people, that graduation has been a bane of their existence because they have this loan hanging over their head for 20 years, and they're not making enough money to even satisfy that loan.
Mhm.
And so in the same way, I just think culturally we celebrate things that really shouldn't be celebrated, or it's premature. Like it's a great
Mhm.
stepping stone, but I think it's premature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I do want to not sound redundant, but just highlight a couple things that I mentioned so that I can kind of lean in a little bit more into what you're
Yeah,
saying now. Number one, home ownership is a very iconic, like it's a
yeah,
huge monumental, I would say.
yeah,
It's a monumental thing for someone in the Black community to be able to purchase a home
for
because
sure.
what it does is show progress in our community from the years and years of the struggle. We've wanted a piece of the pie for years, right? And we wanted it like our counterparts, like, and we wanted it with ease, and not the higher interest rates. And The Color of Law is a good book if anybody wants to go back and just kind of look at that segment in particular about housing discrimination. Was just like eye-opening to me because there's so many different filters and things in place now that prevent that, but there's still a couple loopholes, if you will. Like there's been appraisal issues in the Black
Yeah,
community where they've been talking about that there's just a huge disparaging amount of lower appraised values in the Black community versus others. And so there are still things that we got a long way to go. But as far as people being able to come in and just ridiculously charge a Black family a higher interest rate, like those kinds of things doesn't they don't exist anymore, right? There's so many different filters, but that stuff happened, and not only that, but when someone finally was able to get into a home, you're essentially getting forced out because the police turn a blinded eye, and you got white mobs going in and trying to intimidate people and throwing bombs, like all kinds of crazy stuff. So I celebrate that. I celebrate it when it's done responsibly, which I'll hit on, but I definitely celebrate it in general when someone from the Black community is able to purchase a home because
mm,
it's been such a struggle. Um, and I celebrate them being homeowners, right? Hey, I'm with it. You know what I mean? You want to take the picture? I've taken some. I normally don't. Um, I don't always go to closing days, but I have, and I celebrate that. I celebrate you getting away from, not building any equity from what they're saying. Hey, I want to build some equity, et cetera. Have some I can pass along to my kids. Legit, I celebrate that. Now, to what you're saying though, because I don't want people to feel like I'm just out here hating on people, right? But what you're saying, I mentioned doing something responsibly and also delaying gratification. I think responsibility and delaying gratification is the key to doing it the right way. I know everybody has different goals, and that's something to be said too. People have different goals, but I mean, I've countless times have pretty much suggested people wait before purchasing a home. Why? Well, because they don't have any money going into the transaction. I understand there's down payment assistance out there. I get that. But if you're going into the transaction and you're draining every cent that you have to your name in the purchase of this home, might I recommend that you give it a minute and have some money saved? Because what's going to happen when you buy this home and now you need furniture? You're probably going to furnish a much larger area now. So you need more of it. Or when you have plumbing issues or you've got HVAC issues in general or whatever it is, you're the
I don't
owner
care. If
now.
I got warranty.
I mean, warrant, there's something to be said about that. But in general, though, right? Like you own the home. So this is your responsibility now, right?
Yeah,
And to your point, if people don't even have an emergency fund set up and can't even afford an average of 400 and some dollars for an emergency, it's probably not time for you to buy a home, right?
but that's what I'm
That's
talking
that
about. So
delayed
like,
gratification.
so do you pursue the small percent that is financially stable, or I mean, do the applications just come in and you just like you made the decision, so we'll see what we could get done? But I'm like, I think I struggle with the overall system and a lot of systems within, like I said, the educational system, the judicial system. So that's what I'm saying. I think it's a cultural thing. Like if the statistics are true about people's income, about people's financial um, viewpoint around money and how they spend money and things like that, and should all these people be going for homes because of those down assistant programs and stuff like that? Of course, I think anybody can get a home as long as you have a decent job that you have for at least a year or two, and your credit is subpar. I think you can get a home. Just like you can get a car, there's subprime lenders that let you get into a car. So if you want a Tesla, you can get a Tesla. Now you may be paying $1,000 a month, while the other person with good credit is paying 500, 600, but you can
Right.
get a Tesla. So my issue is not the approval process and things like that. The issue is like, should we even be doing this? But maybe I'm taking on a burden that I shouldn't even be taking on. But I'm just like the whole system is kind of. I'm just questioning everything. Everything we was taught, I'm just questioning it at this point.
I mean, it's good questions, right? And again, I'm sitting in a seat where I'm talking to people all the time
Yeah.
that I'm like, this dude probably should not. And I can't tell people, here's the thing,
Right.
I can't tell someone not to pursue financing. It's a very thin line. And I've got to make sure that I keep my head straight and I got to make sure that I'm compliant. I can't tell someone not to pursue an application because I could be accused of discrimination, right? They would find some pinpointed thing that they could probably throw in there. So I choose to keep myself in the clear. However, I have a fiduciary responsibility to let these people know, hey, here's what you got right now. Here's what your payment's going to be. Here's what's required when you get into the home. Consider a few of these things, right? I want to submit this to you. It's going to be a very different ball game once you get into this home. So,
I mean,
um,
if you had a guess, out of every 10 applications, how many are on average are good applications where this person is ready?
one to two, one to two,
Wow.
one to two. Yeah, real talk. Yeah. And to go back to the question that you were asking about how I market for certain people. So I work with realtors, right? Um, and one of the ones that I work with the most, whose name is also Terrence. Shout out to Terrence Williams out there at Ion Vision. I'll promote his stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
but
Terrence is
but
a dope,
he
ain't they?
they're pretty dope. But he does a very good job of being realistic as well. Like, he doesn't try to sell people the moon. He's honest with them, and I think that's why a lot of people like him. And he'll be real with me too. Hey, Kev, I checked out a few things. I think they're solid, think they're good to go. Or, hey, you know what, this person's pursuing. I'm not going to tell them not to do it, but I did kind of throw some hints out there and maybe recommend like we give it a minute because they ain't got no savings. They got blah, 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 blah. And he lets me know that up front. So he knows what I'm preparing for. But I mean, it's a mixed bag, So I get stuff from him, referrals from different sources. They just come, right? And so out of 10, probably one or two are actually ready to buy a home right now. That's me. It again, it depends on I
That's in
guess
line
the
with the
network that
statistics,
you're
right?
in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, that's on par with the
15%.
statistics. So,
Redfin just did a study. Well, it was a group of realtors did an analysis through Redfin, and they discovered that only 15% of home buyers or people that are ready to buy, well, potential home buyers can afford a typical payment right now based on pricing and things and where rates are in this market. Just 15%. Last year was 22%, I believe. So it's, I mean, that percentage is dropping of the affordability. And it's a whole big reason
Yeah.
for that. But I
Right.
mean, not too many people can afford it right now. Inflation is very high. So um, hitting a lot of different areas. But full circle, man, it's all about responsibility. And no, some people, it's a status symbol, right? Some people
Yeah.
buy vehicles, and we talked about this last time, right? But it's relevant. Some people look at a house as kind of like a status symbol. If I buy this house, then people are moving. That's their motivation, right? Is kind of approval, image, and not everybody trying to buy a house. I get that. I've talked to a lot of single moms that they just want to try to stop the moving around, the nomadic type lifestyle for their kids. You know what I mean? And like maybe they're not able to at this point. I've talked to women like that they really want to try to get somewhere stable. So
Mhm.
I can't say it's everybody, but there's a huge percentage where it's probably status symbol, it's probably clout chasing, right? And
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy out there, bro. Like that's an expensive way to clout chase. And that's why foreclosures are so high because, they don't have the savings. And so when something goes awry, now they can't afford to make that payment. And so, I mean, $127, I'm not trying to condescend or anything, but $127 water bill, if that's the average and people can't afford to do that, that's pretty crazy, right? So
But what are some of the challenges you see, particularly when it comes to African American home buyers, like during a loan process? Is there anything unique to the African American dynamic that you see from other minority groups, or no?
honestly, not really, man. Because I've taken applications of just the full spectrum, right?
Mm.
And so in that regard, I mean, it's pretty much equal. I mean, I've taken applications from Hispanics, whites, you name it, and a lot of them don't have the money. You know what I mean? It's tough, right? In this particular market, especially, man, home values or the price for homes and interest rates being at all-time highs, like it's rough just getting into a house right now. So some of the challenges I'm seeing in the Black community is across the board, and that is the lack of savings or don't have the income to support the payment just because homes are, the value of homes is just so high right now. So that right there is about the same. Um, However, there's some other distinctions um, in terms of kind of what we're talking about right now. It's just
Yeah.
like the consumption aspect of it, like that we hit on last time that the black dollar is going to a lot. I mean, we're one of the biggest consumers, right? And so the attempt to purchase homes when they're not ready can probably fall along in that. And some people actually buy the homes by the skin of their teeth, some of the grants and stuff like that. And it doesn't help the wealth gap at all because you can't even afford to stay in the home that you were trying to utilize as that means
Right.
for wealth, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah,
And I
I
think
took
I
a
think that would be more crushing than anything to get the home and then foreclose. So, is there anything when we talk about the black daughter, like, is there anything else in your mind that we should be pursuing other than home ownership, or is there anything else that we can pursue? Because home ownership is very attainable in Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, but be in New York, LA, in Dallas, Austin, like some of these cities, like you may need to look at other avenues. So, is it a warped mindset to say um, a mortgage is roughly 28 to 3,000? I can rent for 2,000, invest that 800 that I would normally be putting into a mortgage, and that's my equity. Is that a warped way of thinking, or how do you view that type of thought
I don't
process?
think it'd yeah, I don't think it'd be fair for anybody to say that that's warped because all of it is based on goals. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? 100% is going to be based on what you're trying to do. I do think there are some other avenues. So one of the things, like you mentioned, what triggers you is like you see people talking about I'm a homeowner and you see the picture on closing day. I think one thing that triggers me, maybe like it triggers you with that instance, is when people talk about building wealth and how buying a home, it can, provided you sell it or you refinance and take cash out to do something with. The home in and of itself is not a wealth banker, right? It's not going to bring wealth, if we're defining wealth monetarily, which we are. It's not a
because it's one
it's
door.
not yeah, it's not bringing you any wealth, right? I mean, it if anything, it's a money pit because now you're going to be spending more money. Now you got property taxes you're paying, right? Now you're paying more for hazard insurance versus the rental insurance that you had. So, and again, we could even go into a segment on some of the cons of renting. So to put that out there, but since we're talking about home ownership, that's what we're talking about. Um, so what gets me is when people talk about, building wealth. I just bought this home, let the wealth building begin. That's true, again, only if you plan to allow appreciation to do its thing, which on average has been 3 to 5% per year for most homes. You allow appreciation to do its thing, and maybe you're going to force equity by paying down the mortgage a little bit, putting some, I don't know, but taking the equity, maybe selling the home, right? And then taking the proceeds and buying a business or front loading something in some kind of investment portfolio or whatever it may be, or refinancing. A lot of people take cash out and they go buy another house or rental property, right? And they do the appreciation game there, fix it up, whatever it is, and take the equity out there. So that's wealth building to me, not just buying a house. Buying a house, and I do not apologize for this, is a money pit. I'm not saying buying a house is wrong, but if we're thinking monetarily, just buying a house and you don't intend to refinance, take cash out and do something with it or sell it, it's a money pit. Now, sure,
Yeah.
will you have something to pass along? Absolutely. Yes, you will, which can do what can work wonders for the next generation. I get that. But yeah, there's other stuff appreciating at a much higher pace and percentage rate than home appreciation. Businesses are 10xing sometimes. You know
And I
what I
think the
mean?
struggle is education
It is.
because home ownership is easy to understand for the most part, right? Like the mortgage process is complicated, but once you get the home, I bought it for this amount. In 10 years, I could sell it for this amount. That difference is the wealth, right? But people don't understand the stock gain. They don't understand, um, ELTs and all this other stuff. Like, so, you know, that's a whole different avenue of education that is not readily available without your individual pursuit. And so that's why I was like, it's easy to not to downgrade it like you're saying. It's a great thing, but it's easy to just fall back on the home ownership aspect and eliminate all these other things. Because when I see the Forbes list, it's rarely because they bought a house.
Right. They might own real estate and
They own
portfolios of
real
apartments and
estate, but
commercial real estate.
yeah, but it's real estate. It's a multiple doors.